Father Jacob the Cameron invited me to read some paper. As I'm getting old, I find it difficult to prepare very exhaustive studies, but I took, which I thought is easier, a comparative study of 3 texts, printed texts of our church prayer book called Qdam u-Batar. Qdam means before, Batar after. So this prayer book, Qdam u-Batar, is a prayer book, and this is my hands, this is the one I used to have, and this is the last one, the third one, 1940, which we used. The one before that, this one, 1923, the first one was 1892. So these 3 different texts of Qdam u-Batar, not a very detailed study, but a general historical sort of study. The first one was printed in Urmi, in Persia. That is the Urmia of the modern Iran, where there was a press of the Archbishop of Canterbury. He started, Archbishop Benson of Canterbury, started a mission among the Nestorians, or they called Assyrians, in June 1886. And when they came, they found out these people don't have any printed books for prayer. Some of them know by heart, some of them have written manuscripts, and they used to stand around that only one book. We stand around and try to read from one book. From this side or that side, you will sort of be forming semi-circle around one volume, especially the Qdam prayer book, because we never had a printed one. But this one we have a printer. So this was the difficulty. They found out they should have a prayer book of their own, printed. But the only printed book available was the one earlier, printed in 1866 by Joseph Audo, the Chaldean Catholic Patriarch, who sent Bishop Tomorokos in 1861, and later in 1874. Rokos was forced to go back in 62 by the efforts of the Blessed Kyriakos Elias, who knew that this bishop is without the approval of Rome. So he pushed him out. But when the second man came, although there was opposition, but Chavra was no more alive, still so he was able to hold on to his work in Trichyur up to 1882, and he returned. We don't have the book, this prayer book, Qdam u-Batar, used by these 2 bishops. I would have been happy to find the copies which they were using in our church. But when they went back, I think they took it back to Iraq, and they lived in obedience to Rome. Because when they were here, they were sort of rebels. They came to India also, sent by the Catholic Chaldean Patriarch against the wishes of Rome. Because Rome said it is their right to appoint any bishops to India. But the Chaldean Catholic bishops, like the Nestorian bishops also, they were one and the same up to 1553. So both groups used to send their bishops. So Rokos and Megas came. So they had this book available, because this was printed in 1866 by the command of Joseph Audo, Chaldean Patriarch. So we don't have that book, but that still is a Catholic book, so we wanted to have our own. So Archbishop of Canterbury's mission focused on this effort to start some printing, and they sent the Archdeacon, which was working with the Patriarch in Kochalis or Kushalis, Mashalita Church, sent him to Urmi to supervise the printing of this book. So they printed u-Batar, this book, for the first time. So 1892, this book was printed. But there again, the Anglican Church, it was a sort of very high Anglicanism there, those missionaries who came. So they were hesitating to include the prayers for the Greek fathers, Diodor of Tarsus, and Theodore of Mopsuestia, and Nestorius of Constantinople. There is a special prayer for the three doctors of the church in our prayer books. But they avoided this. They thought that it may be heretical books, and some of those missionaries, Aprem who translated this book into English, East Syrian Daily Offices, published in 1892. So these people were hesitant, so they omitted those words there, and also something which they were not very sure should be included or not, whether it had some sort of a heresy stigma of a Nestorian heresy. They avoided the word Nestorian totally. They gave it the name Assyrian. They said this is Assyrian church. This is Archbishop to the Assyrian Christians. Because some of them said Nestorian is still heresy at that time. Now it's a different time. You know, we have to think back. This is 1892. Nowadays, many of those scholars don't think that way. But anyhow, at that time they thought, so they avoided the prayer book, prayer for the three Greek doctors in that book. The first time they were printing for our church, they may have used the Chaldean, the Catholic u-Batar printed in 1866. They may have not used it, I guess, because the third one, Timothy says in his introduction, the first to this book. So scholars must have known it, but it's not seen in, I have not seen that copy of 1866. Then this prayer book, people began to use it, but they had no Mazmora, that is Psalms of David. So they printed a separate book. Actually, they printed it 1 year before, 1891, the book of Mazmora. And they bound together the book of Mazmora of 1891 with the u-Batar of 1892, with a foreword added to it in 1898. So this book has 1898 because they are all the three put together. 1891 Mazmora, then the prayers of 1892 with this additional in the front 1898. So this is the prayer book we had for our priest to use. Priest Oshana Soro was the name of the archdeacon who was deputed by the patriarch to supervise the printing of this book. This copy actually came to India. It was presented to our Indian deacon who went in 1925 to Columbia University. He was doing his PhD there. He went to the Metropolitan there, then he started doing his PhD there. There a man met him there, Reverend Isaac Yochanan, son of Dr. Yochanan, PhD, and he presented this copy of the prayer book. That's the one we have in the church, the only copy of this first edition of 1892. But we had the feeling that we should have our own, because this was done by the Anglicans, so we should have our own purely Church of the East book. And in 1923, the second book, which I have, the Musa edition, was printed by a deacon of our church known as Joseph Killaitha. He had been taken to London to write, you know, he's a good calligraphy, he's writing letters, types, for the Bible Society to print the Syriac Bible in London, and he did that. And so when we heard about him, and also he was related to our Metropolitan Timotheus, and therefore we brought him there to Trichur. And he stayed 2 years there, trying to write these Alapid and everything. and very nice, beautiful handwriting, and he wrote down got the people to Carpenters to work with him. I have a photograph of him, Joseph Kilaita gave him directions to the carpenters sitting around him. And they worked 2 years to make a good, beautiful font, because people later have used this font, this font made in ritual. So after he finished it, we thought he would stay there, start a press. Then somehow, I think he quarreled with the bishop. He took all these types, fonts and everything, went to his country. So we were very disappointed. So we called all the carpenters and made duplicates for us. But he went and started a press in Mosul. You must understand the history of the Assyrians who were homeless. They had the, massacre, 1915. Actually, they had in 1842 Badr Khanbag. They destroyed many of the writings then. The second one was this 1915. Then they had this World War first, and then they were made refugees in their own country. That is Turkey, because they fought against their own country with the Allies. There's a book called The British Betrayal of the Assyrians. This is how they felt. We were betrayed, we had no land. They came as refugees, and they came around Baghdad, Mosul. And in Mosul, this priest, this deacon, Joseph Kilaita, started his printing press, Assyrian press Mosul, and Assyrian school in Mosul, where he taught many people. So he printed with the help of his students, and I guess my metropolitan immediate predecessor, Dharma, was working under him at that time, studying in the school, helping in the printing, in his printing press. That interest made him to print the Qdam later when he came to India. But anyhow, this book was printed, the second book, the u-Batar. In this we tried to make sure that Theodore, Nestorius, and all our fathers for the Greek church, because we call them Alpane, Yaunai, the Greek fathers. We are not the people started by these fathers. Those Greek fathers are in agreement with our church which was started in the first century. That is our way of explaining. So we thought these fellows should be brought back into the book. So in the Mosul edition, we find these prayers for Theodore, Dido, Theodore, and Nestorius on the Alpane, Yaunai, the Greek fathers. This edition, 1923, was brought to India, and in 25 we started a press, because we made duplicates. We called all the carpenters and asked them, do you remember how we made it? And they made it for us. And we started the press in 1926, started printing Assyrian calendars and some other small books. Then we thought we will print our own, because it was not easy to get books from there. So in 1913, for the Mosul, this book, actually some of them came to our church because some of our seniors were using that in India. I think only very few copies were able to trace in India of that printed book. But unfortunately, the archdeacon, when he became a priest, there was a lot of quarrel, because the patriarch of the time did not approve of his ordination, promotion to the priesthood. The patriarch was only 12 years old when he became patriarch in 1920. So our Indian metropolitan was there working as his regent, and patriarch was sent to England to spend 2 years of studies. But when he was about 19 years old, he came back to Mosul and he said, okay, I am the patriarch, you don't ordain him. This ordination is cancelled, suspended. Nobody should go to this priest. And he had a hard time. Anyhow, he remained as a scholar, but gradually his press, Assyrian press, was closed down. He was sort of persecuted by the leadership. Although we decided we should have our own edition of u-Batar. And so in 1940, we printed this, the third book. This was printed by Timotheus, the metropolitan, a distant cousin of Joseph Kilaita. And he was himself a scholar. And he was in Middle East. He was actually secretary to the Patriarch before the First World War and came to India in 1928. And he printed this book. And he was careful not to miss anything which is of our own church, because the feeling was there. The first one would be the Anglican mission, the second one Mosul by a deacon. At that time he was deacon, Joseph Keleka. That's also not very well approved. But here is the third one, by a metropolitan, by his approval, by his supervision, he printed this book. We used this, actually this was printed in 1940. The year I was born. And 14 years later, when I was a 14-year-old boy, this book was presented to me by my immediate predecessor, Martha. So I have been praying this u-Batar, the Ramsha prayers, from the age of 14 in Trishur, and we were, later we finished the copies of this book. And Timotheus died, 45, but then we decided to print Qdam, the bigger book, because this is only for the ordinary days. But the Qdam is for all the prayers, festival days, everything combined. It's a bigger book, 3 volumes. That was printed in 1960 to 62 by Martha. That also ended up in a great controversy. After the book was printed, the Metropolitan said, okay, I will write the foreword. The Patriarch said, no, this is the book of the faith. Metropolitan cannot write, only the Patriarch can write foreword. And there's a big quarrel between them. Patriarch sent me the foreword. We printed it. Then Metropolitan said, I will write my preface to it and put it in front of the Patriarch's foreword and send it. And the Patriarch wrote to all of us, tear off those pages, don't use this. We said, no, forget it. Anyhow, this is what has happened, and that book went out of print. But Dharma Qdam, people have heard about it, 1962 onwards. In 1992, I think, I made a reprint of it. I didn't put my name. I just put the name of the press and the date only, the second edition. It has gone out of print for the last 15 years. Many of you were asking me, you want Qdam? Sorry, so the third volume is there. First two is not there. Then somebody asked, why can't I print it? But again, controversy. If I print it with that name of that Metropolitan, again some controversies will come up. So I keep quiet. If the Patriarch or the Sir, they can print it, that will be good. So this is about the Qdam. But this is the prayer book 1940, which many of us used it, and we found it in the evening prayers, very meaningful. But again, we didn't have the Psalms, the Mazmora in it, so we had to get it from others, another book, Mazmora. But when Qdam was printed, then we had to take that one book and turn pages from Mazmora and the prayers and everything. So we do not need this separate book, Qdam u-Batar. But then we have other editions. Nowadays, the editions are there. Some computer, you can use the Syriac font available in the computers, and so I will come into the conclusion. A comparative study of this major edition 1892, 1923 and 40. There are some similarities in general. Only the 1892, the first one of the Archbishop of Canterbury's mission is slightly different or omitting something from the rest of it, but both the rest are the same. And then we have 19 Timotheus has written a small foreword, a detailed history of the previous editions in his book, and then the edition printed in Nineveh Press. Then afterwards, Nineveh Press, there's a new press started in Kirkuk, Iraq. They printed it because the 1940 edition was finished. So I wanted to go and see Kirkuk, the Nineveh Press, 1962. And Abdul Karim Qasim was making a terror in that area in Nineveh. So I went to Mosul, and the deacon, who was Malpan in India, took me to the office, government office. I said, please issue this. Not visa, I allow him to go to Kirkuk. He looked at me and said, you go and ask Mullah Mustafa Barzani, the terrorist, to give you permission. Because Abdul Karim Qasim, our government cannot give you to visit Kirkuk, no safety there. So I did not go to Kirkuk. But the Navy Press in Kirkuk printed it. Then another one was printed in 1983 by the Syrian Metropolitan Press in Dora, Baghdad, Iraq. 1996, another edition came out from Baghdad. And in 2004, an edition was printed in Chicago, USA, where the Patriarch has its temporary headquarters. And several small copies, copies are used in different churches. And just they put, you cannot read it, I cannot read it, so small. The three things, first edition, 1892, then the 73, and the 40, just different pages, getting this page, then there's 6 pages of the same thing. As I said, it's difficult to read, but I hope in the book it will be printed. But still, it's in my, when I put the 3 columns in 1 page, it is difficult to read. I don't know whether we will make it separate or maybe easier. So bigger letters. I must acknowledge my gratitude to Wilson, the Syriac typist, who gathered everything and prepared everything for me for this, because I can't read small letters. But this is just a comparative study, and the prayer books are now people are started using Malayalam in some of our churches, but at the same time we still hold on to the Ramsha prayers in our Mathemarian Cathedral and in some other churches when we teach our students. And I'm glad we have 4 students in the MA course from our church, 3 completed, the 4th one is here, and then PhD 3 of us did, and therefore we feel that we should give a new life to our church, and especially for the study of the ancient prayer books, ancient heritage, and we are also thinking of good building a church in Syriac in China. Recently our synod has decided, and we have translated our liturgy of the Mari into Chinese language by a man called David Tang, who is a representative in Jingzhou Fellowship. He's the director of the Jingzhou Fellowship for our church there, and then we are renewing this language. But some of these books, as I said, are destroyed and being destroyed every day. And we don't know, next month we have scheduled our Holy Synod to meet in Aprem, in Kurdistan, North Iraq. And I myself and all the bishops are scared a little bit about it. But the government says, no, we have built you headquarters, your patriarchate there. Come and occupy, take possession of the building. We have laid the foundation and government built it for us because the finance minister of Kurdistan was a member of our church, is no more there. But then they have built it, and perhaps if we have the courage and if Americans give us assurance, they will protect people going to, directed to, that area, not going to Baghdad. And last time also when I went to Aprem, I didn't go to Baghdad. It's a dangerous place now. People are moving to the north. So I hope that our church will keep these traditions and these prayer books and new books, because these are old, and try to say that here is a church that, it's interesting, you have Iran book, then you have the book in Iran, then you have the book in India. All people use it all over the world, the same. So when I go to some church, I look at it, I start praying, and they said, how did you find this? It is our book. I said, yeah, it is also printed in our place, so I know where to find it. So it's interesting, and it's just take a back to study, and I will finalize the paper after the conference is over, and it will be given for publication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great. We have now about 5 minutes for questions.
Your Grace, can you please explain what all are the prayers, like Ramsha, Lilia, Satras, Subha, like that? What all are the prayers, and how many cycles, that is to say, first week, second week, like that? How many cycles do you have in the that's what that was.
Yeah, we have the 2 weeks, the first week and the second week. So there's 15 days, you know, we repeat the prayers. We have separate prayer for each day of the week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like that, for 2 times. That's my and the order. Then we have, of course, we don't practice the midnight things, prayers now, because perhaps the monasteries there, they may have used it 7 times. But what we have is a Ramsha in the evening, which we used to do at 4:30, but now we do 6 because it is the next day's Ramsha. So we cannot do it before 6. So at 6 or 6:30 we are doing that Ramsha. Then the morning, Sapra, we do it in the morning. But then there's a Lilia. So we don't get up at night time and go. So we do that Lilia and Sapra together. So when we go in the morning, we first read the Lilia and then read the Sapra. So 2 prayers over. Before Kurmana we have to do that. But the evening, so these 3 are the prayers mainly done. Then the u-Batar and other prayers are not done because we don't have there no monastery. If there's a monastery, we will revive all this.
I have some questions which I will ask this great private. But what I want to say now is, I would like to, I don't know whether I should say that, I would like to congratulate Aprem, Bishop of just a small diocese, building up his church in a great way. And in the traditions of the church in Syriac and in other aspects, with great effort, even in CD, he did his 2nd doctorate, and every time I come here, I find some Chaldean from Trichur, Lindsay. Every time I go to Dharma or DPK, I find some Chaldean from Trichur. So I congratulate him for this great effort he is taking to build up a small church into a very influential church in the whole of India and probably in the whole world.
Thank you.
One question which I want to say, because you mentioned Xianfu. Of course, the Xianfu cross is there. But also some Chinese scholars have shown me many great works of art and architecture, ancient ones in China. I do not know whether they have been collected together. If not, I think in the next paper, you present the next CD conference, we will talk about those great works of art and architecture still existing in China.
Yeah. There are more to be discovered. You know, last year when I went to Sri Lanka, I went to Haridhanapura, the ancient cross there. I was very happy to see that. And also more are being discovered. 2 years ago, I wrote my travel about that monastery, Sir Benias Island of Abu Dhabi, before reaching Saudi Arabia. So we went there. So nothing is there, but a lot of digging is gone, archaeology is gone, and we were happy to know there was a very flourishing Christianity monastery from around 600 to 750. Then disappeared. Now we are trying to revive this. As he said that since my church is small, I have time to go around, and fortunately all people start accepting me as their bishop. You go to New Zealand, there's Aprem is there. So that's acceptance and opportunities. If my health permits, I have plans again to go to more places, and China Church, I hope next year our young bishops from America will come forward. We are planning to build the church, a small one, so that we will continue history going back to Aprem 635 AD there. But then there are requests here and there, other places, even Sri Lanka, and why can't you start there? If your church was here, this cross is reminding of that fact. So more has to be done. God help you do.
Madam, can you tell us what was the last book written on Mama Cyprus literature in Syriac letter, and in which year?
Last Syriac book?
Last book printed in Syriac letter on the press in literature.
Yeah, now there is nobody composing with the letter press, you see. So we have a computer. So when it is composed in the computer, we can print it. But the last one was, let us see, we will read was reprinted in 1992. But new books are not composed in Syriac in Marwa Cyprus now.
The last question.
Taksa. Oh yeah, Taksa. We printed it. Actually, we used that photocopy of the old composing. We didn't recompose it. At Malayalam, we made a translation and put a good Taksa, the Kurbana, at the end Mari. One side, the Syriac little more bigger letters with the photocopy thing, and made it a good book with the Malayalam translation, newly composed. Yeah, that's the latest book I think. Taksa.
Your place concerning later when he went to London, do you think his calligraphy was taken as an example, as models for by the publishing or by the printing house to print the Qdam and u-Batar?
Yeah. Actually we could have taken the same, but he wanted to come and do it in ritual because of people who will work on according to his plan. London he was doing it for private society, not his responsibility. But this was a little more work of his own. So all the types you find, many people have bought types. We used to cast these types some years ago. Now that machine is out of order and we don't have Assyrian people working with us as they used to do before. Nobody here. So we are not doing it. I think the computers are very good different fonts. Ariali and other fonts.
So thank you. We would like to thank His Grace for